Since ancient times, sailors would return home from sea voyages with tales of mysterious and strange creatures. Sea serpents and krakens dragged ships to their doom, and mermaids lured sailors to their death with siren songs. The myths of merfolk are old and storied. In Ireland they have merrows, Russians have rusalka water nymphs, in Norway and parts of Scotland they have finfolk, who shapeshifted and made humans their slaves. The Inuit of the far north have the Sedna, the mother of all sea mammals. The Caribbean islands are home to a water spirit called Lucerne, and Chinese tales speak of mermaids whose tears become pearls. Christopher Columbus and his lonely sailors, deprived of human female contact for months, mistaken manatees doing tail stands in the distance for the mythical mermaids of their dreams. I taught the underwater photo class at Brooks for many years, and the course morphed. It became less scuba-oriented and natural history-oriented, and more into the commercial realm where people were doing underwater work with models. So I changed the course to allow students to snorkel, to not scuba dive. So I had to come up with something for them to photograph. So I said, well, I'm going to get some professional models who can swim really well, and maybe we can do fashion underwater. And as part of that process, one of my students said, I know a mermaid. I found out there are professional mermaids out there who make a living from being a mermaid.
I'm Tasha. I've been a mermaid performer for 10 years. I began as a solo mermaid performer, and then a year later I started my mermaid entertainment company, Elite Mermaids.
These women and men are really incredible free divers. Some of them can hold their breath for 3 minutes.
Well, I first started mermaiding about 10 years ago. I've always loved being in the water, and being a mermaid has always been a passion and a dream of mine since I was a little girl.
They have the comfort underwater to actually put this mermaid tail on and swim around and spend time in the water, which is no easy feat.
Swimming underwater in a mermaid tail is such an amazing experience. You actually feel like a real mermaid, and because my tail has a built-in monofin, it just helps me glide through the water.
Once they put that tail on and get in the water, they can swim 2 to 3 times faster than a person without the tail on. So they can move through the water very, very quickly.
Becoming a professional mermaid was sort of a logical next step for me as a performer. Since I was very little, I had always been training in dance and performing. I was also a very strong swimmer, and coaches were always trying to get me to be in swim competitions, but the sporting aspect of it was just not my thing.
Mermaids just kind of happened 2 years into the process, and I just thought it was a good idea to bring him in to speak about ocean conservation.
Once they put that tail on, they had to be carried down to the edge of the boat and put in the water, not thrown in the water. They would either pose, just literally drop down in the water column, or the students would have them do some swimming or interacting with another person in the water, trying to make stories rather than just a fashion-y kind of pose.
I enjoy shooting in the ocean and in natural environments a lot more because of how fun it is to just be in the ocean. You have a lot more creativity freedom when it comes to scuba shoots.
The biggest challenge of shooting underwater is actually being comfortable in the water. It's a dangerous environment. It's not one we're used to. and then dealing with currents and cold, and if you're on scuba, your tank's going to run out of air, you have to get out and then start over again. And there's a lot of stuff to take care of, and then there's the photography.
Being photographed underwater is such a surreal experience. It's such a group effort to make each photo happen.
With that said, it also takes a lot more experience to shoot on scuba 60, 90 feet down. Your model needs to be very experienced, a very experienced scuba diver, but also your crew. You need to have a lot more people that know what they're doing. They are very comfortable in the water, enough to be safe for themselves and for everybody around them. Your model is going to be underwater virtually completely blind. She needs to not only be very comfortable underwater, but she needs to trust the crew.
You know, I want to emphasize how important the safety aspect was. So we would actually bring the mermaid down with a scuba diver, and they would have an extra regulator coming off of their tank with a long hose. And so the mermaid could breathe the air from the tank and do her posing and really not leave the depth. When she was coming out of air, she would signal, the safety diver would go over, give her the regulator.
I feel so well taken care of in the water with them. They just really go out of their way to make me feel comfortable and to make me feel safe. And I would shoot with them anytime they ask.
When you go from the surface to underwater, you have bubbles trapped in your nose and a lot of times around your face. And so the mermaid would have to wipe those away. And then the mermaids, I don't know how they did this, but they had to realize how their hair is going to flow in different positions. So they would move their head to get the hair to flow. They would have to stretch their tail out. They'd have to position their arms and hands to look elegant. A lot of times you'd want them to sort of smile. So they blow air out of their lungs so that their cheeks aren't puffed up like that, and let that air out and then slightly open their mouth, and that looks very natural underwater. So I had this idea of a diver or a swimmer swimming around the islands through the kelp and everything and coming upon a sleeping mermaid.
He just said, I have an idea, and so I followed him out to shore where he had already picked the perfect spot for the photo.
And what I like to do in situations like this is I'll give the mermaid a mask so that she can watch me sort of go down and pose where I want her to pose.
And he just said, just swim into this rock full of seaweeds and, you know, pose like you're sleeping. And so we did that a couple of times. It was a little hard because I kept floating up, so we had to put some weights on my mermaid tail to keep me level.
The surge is moving back and forth, her hair is moving, the seaweed's moving. It takes quite a bit of shots to get something that looks right.
I was actually a little afraid of having some critters coming through the weeds, but everything was fine. And then when I saw the image, I was just like, this is what every mermaid dreams of having for themselves. Like, it's just such a beautiful image.
Mermaids have a universal appeal. The opportunity for this show to travel to other museums and other venues is great because everybody who sees the mermaid images connects with them.
Mermaids may be ancient, but they are still with us in many forms. Their images can be found all around us in sculptures, films, books, movies, paintings, at Starbucks, and maybe even in the ocean waves if we're willing to use our imagination.